Welcome to Ninerology, Faithful in the Trenches. I'm your host, Alan, and it is now the 13th, which means it is the official day for the new league year, which is less than 3 hours away, which means there's going to be a lot of moves, a lot of teams trying to get underneath the salary cap. But what have the 49ers been up to? Let's take a quick look at what they've done in recent days, and most importantly, the trade that they just pulled off for Maliek Collins from the Texans. They ended up giving up a 7th round pick, which is a great trade for the 49ers, gives the Texans some cap relief, but also sets up the 49ers for success after losing Arik Armstead. So some of the free agency moves that we've seen from the 49ers, we see Leonard Floyd is coming over from the Bills. That was a 2-year deal, up to $25 million. You see Yetur Gross-Matos, 2 years, $18 million coming from the Panthers. You have Jordan Elliott, defensive tackle, 2 years, $10 million. You have linebacker Eric Kendricks from the Chargers coming over on a 1-year deal. That's to help with the loss of Dre Greenlaw and that Achilles while he kind of gets better. Then you had the trade that happened this morning for Maliek Collins from the Texans. Now, this is a phenomenal trade because it helps to really shore up that interior defensive line where you already lost Javon Kinlaw. You're already going to lose Arik Armstead. And so you need to rebuild that defensive line. And they've done that. They've actually got 3 guys for almost the price of 1. And it sets them up for the future. Not only did they get younger, they got cheaper. And so while they're not always sexy names, granted, Maliek Collins, that is a big name defensive tackle, while the rest aren't big names or sexy names, it does provide the 49ers with much needed depth at that defensive line and edge, which means hopefully they're actually going to go for offensive line during the draft because we know that, let's face it, that Trey Lance trade is finally catching up to the 49ers. We're seeing it in the salary cap. We're seeing it with the age with some of the players. And so they really need to hit this draft well. And I think they filled in those gaps on the defensive side of the ball through free agency, which means they can focus on the offensive side, specifically the offensive line through the draft. So we're still early. The new league year hasn't started. I anticipate a few moves, probably a couple surprising moves. This move for Maliek Collins is going to cost the 49ers about $8.5 million toward their cap this year, in which they're only about $9 million under with the Fred Warner's restructure. And that doesn't include the Leonard Floyd signing, the Yetur Gross-Matos signing, Jordan Elliott, or Eric Kendricks. And so my assumption is we're going to see a few other moves, maybe a Kyle Juszczyk restructure, possibly a Charvarius Ward extension, maybe even a Deebo Samuel restructure if they plan on keeping him beyond this year. And so I do see some of those moves. I don't see Brandon Ayuk getting restructured yet, or getting that extension yet, even though that would free up about $10 million. I assume that that's going to go into almost training camp. But right now we see the 49ers are finally making moves, which they need to do. And I think that helps to set them up for success. They are a much better team today than they were yesterday. I would argue that they were worse off yesterday than they were when they went to the Super Bowl this last year. But after the trade for Maliek Collins, that helps to shore up that defensive line, which, let's face it, that's the identity of the 49ers defense, is that defensive line. Fred Warner can't do, Dre Greenlaw can't do what they do without a solid defensive line in front of them to kind of take up those blockers, take up those linemen, and so they can't get to that next level, and it allows them to kind of roam. So I anticipate a big day today, but kudos to the 49ers, kudos to John Lynch for making that trade and making some moves today, and we'll see what happens throughout the rest of free agency.